So the developers did mention in the update log that there was going to be a new Evergreen Tower coming to Tower Defense Simulator, as well as a medic rework, a turret refresh, and Tyler, or Star Wars, has just confirmed on Discord that they are looking into a Gladiator rework. So in terms of towers, there are some exciting towers coming in the next half of 2025, also alongside PvP clans and quests, which aren't currently in the game. However, this has largely been overshadowed by a PvP mode being kind of, I wouldn't say buggy, but it's just there to create drama, I guess. However, for this Evergreen Tower, not much was said in the update log, but there have been some news when it comes to the new Evergreen Tower. So, Star Wars on Discord said new Evergreen Tower leak. He posted a event for the Evergreen Tower. This is the Evergreen Tower. A familiar shadow emerges from the darkness, introducing the Assassin Tower. Swift, quiet, and dangerously efficient, this melee specialist returns to the roots of classic tower defense. Perfectly suited for beginners, it's ready to strike fear into the hearts of your enemies. Are you prepared to unleash this classic threat onto the battlefield? Now, from this, there's been a lot of speculation. So firstly, yes, the new Evergreen Tower is the Assassin Tower. Here, it's just titled as New Tower. We're going to assume that the new Evergreen Tower mentioned in the update log is also the same as the new tower mentioned here. It's coming on the 6th of August on Wednesday. That's the normal update, and in fact, when the next update is going to be. And it's going to last until the 20th of August. So that's probably the update cycle. So there's normally an update every 2 weeks. There's sometimes a mid-cycle update in between the 2 Wednesdays. In this case, it doesn't seem to be the case. It looks like the new tower leak, it is going to be encompassing 2 weeks. So from this description, a familiar shadow emerges from the darkness. This sort of implies that we've seen this character before, and are you prepared to unleash this classic threat onto the battlefield? So this sort of does imply that we've seen this tower in Tower Defense Simulator before. However, when it comes to towers that we've seen in the previous past, the only tower that has been removed is the Sentry Tower. There are other towers that are considered unreleased, like the War Machine or Mecha Base, but they will eventually, in like 2034, be released to the general public. And then you've got other towers such as the Void Miner, for example, and then some other towers that I may not speak of. I know the Yeehaw Tower I'm allowed to talk about, well, I'm allowed to say what it is, not allowed to talk about it, I don't think. But it exists, and I don't think the Assassin Tower is that. A familiar shadow emerges from the darkness. Perhaps it is an enemy converted over into a tower. So, for example, it could be, in terms of a classic tower, it could be the Swordmaster. You never know. The Swordmaster, it could be returning. I doubt it, since the Swordmaster is really in the game as part of like the Gladiator. The Gladiator, at least in part, it came from the Swordmaster, whereas this doesn't look like that. But it is mentioned that this is a melee specialist, returns to the roots of classic tower defense. The only problem is, classic tower defense, what are we talking about here? Like, the earliest tower that's a melee tower is the Gladiator Tower. Are we saying that it's going to return for, like, a Gladiator-like tower? Because, may I remind you, the Gladiator Tower in 2019, when it was first added, was shit. It was the worst tower in the game, and it wasn't even close. I don't think many people would want to see a Gladiator Classic Tower returning. And then the next tower after that was added was the Slasher Tower. So perhaps it is not, sorry, the Slasher Tower is its renamed version. Back in the day it was called the Shredder Tower. So in that sense, maybe the classic threat that they talk about is something akin to the Shredder Tower from 2019 being not re-added per se, but its similar feature being added to Tower Defense Simulator, given the fact that the Slasher Tower, it can't throw its knife. Whereas here, it sort of implied that this is swift, quiet, and dangerously efficient. I mean, there's not really much to go on. Swift and quiet, so I'm assuming that it has a low fire rate, so that it can fire, or I guess swing its knife or whatever, very quickly. However, it also mentions that it's perfectly suited for beginners. So, as of currently in Tower Defense Simulator right now, we don't have that many starter towers in Tower Defense Simulator. I believe there's only 6, whereas there's a lot of intermediate towers and certainly a lot of late game towers, or what they call it here, the advanced towers. So as you can see here, a healthy amount of intermediate and advanced, hardcore, and then a lot of exclusive. But when it comes to starter towers, there's only 6. Certainly, we are missing some. I wouldn't say we're missing some towers. We need more starter towers. So in that case, I guess the Assassin Tower could fill the role here. There's also some speculation that it could be a leaked tower from 2020, which had some knuckle dusters. However, I would like to point out that that was the Brawler Tower, and we did actually get the Brawler Tower in 2024. While that tower was speculated to be a melee tower because of the knuckle dusters, you know, punching up enemies, that was the Brawler Tower. I'm not entirely sure if it had the same exact name, but in my mind, it did have the same exact name. So I very much doubt that we're going to be getting that tower from 2021 into Tower Defense Simulator again. Although I could be wrong. Like I said, that is technically a classic tower. Most people consider classic Tower Defense Simulator anything before 2021, and that tower did appear in 2020, so you never know. And also, technically speaking, yes, there is like a gap in the market for when it comes to melee towers. After all, if you exclude the exclusive towers, which, to be fair, there are quite a few melee exclusive towers, such as the Gladiator and the Slasher, we have, what, the Brawler, we have the Warden, and that's about it. So I guess a Assassin Tower that appears here in the starter towers, it could befit it, I guess. There's also some speculation that the Assassin Tower could be something related to the new PvP mode, or it could be rewarded at the end of PvP mode for like General 3s, although given the recent stuff when it comes to win trading and getting all the way up to General 3 by this means, I don't think developers would want to add this as a PvP rewarded tower. It could be the case where this tower is adapted for PvP mode, but it's stated that it's an evergreen tower. Not entirely I mean, to be fair, PvP is an evergreen thing, and evergreen tower means not an exclusive tower, and more specifically, not an event tower. So that's nothing like the likes of the Harvester, nothing like the likes of the Snowballer, Slasher, those towers. It's a tower that's always going to be purchasable. And given the fact that PvP mode is like an evergreen mode, it's not an event. Like, there are seasons to PvP mode, but it is not going to be removed anytime soon. Could be the case where this is an Assassin Tower could be used in PvP mode. I don't know, maybe it's specially adapted for PvP mode to sabotage your opponents. You never know. And also, when it comes to appearance, I'd like to say that this tower looks very familiar, because if you were to pull up PvP matchmaking, you will notice that it's here. This, or, well, it's speculated to be at least, this thing here is speculated to be the Assassin Tower, given its green mask and very similar appearance to the tower that's shown off here. It's not an exact match, but you can see there it's got like a green eye here, but then it also has like two green eyes here, so maybe not exactly the same, but it does certainly have a similar-ish outfit. Whether or not this is in relation to the Assassin Tower, we don't know, but certainly this isn't a thing that we see in Tower Defense Simulator currently. It's not like it's a rewarded thing. It looks like that this is a new tower, but whether this tower is related to the Assassin Tower, we don't know. And if it is related to the Assassin Tower, could this mean that it's specially adapted for PvP mode? We also don't know. It is just speculation. I mean, the image that's shown off here for the new tower leak, it's not much to go on, I can't lie. There's more to go on the supposed Assassin Tower thing on the PvP matchmaking, but again, that's not really confirmed to be part of this tower, and we don't know if they're related at all. However, if this is a tower that is perfectly suited for beginners, this probably does mean that it's going to be a starter tower, but also that it's going to be a tower that costs coins. Now, there have been many, I wouldn't say drama, but I'd say certainly displeasurement at the fact that new towers, when they've been added, they've always been event towers, or they've been towers that have cost like a lot of gems. So, for example, when the Hacker Tower was released this year, many people said that it was not that great because, well, you had to use gems to get it, and not everyone had the amounts of gems to get the Hacker Tower. But if it is a new starter tower to be added to the game, then many people would actually warmly receive it because it'll probably cost coins. It won't cost gems if it's a starter tower, and it's very unlikely to be level locked because the lowest level locked tower we have in the game is the Crook Boss, which is level locked to level 30. There's not much wiggle room there between levels 1 to level 30 to add a new tower, I guess, in terms of level locked towers. I mean, I guess there's 15 or 10, but at that point, you might as well just lock it as a starter tower that costs coins. Now, where it would rank in like the starter tower meta, I'm not entirely sure. Perhaps maybe 400 coins, because I mean there is a slight gap in coin cost between the Soldier, 350 coins, and the Freezer, which is 500 coins. Do bear in mind that the Freezer used to be considered a starter tower before it was ranked up to intermediate and the lowest of the intermediate towers. So I guess it probably would end up here if it were to be a starter tower, somewhere between the Soldier and the Freezer in terms of its utility and its coin cost. Then again, though, the paintballer does exist, and it exists as like this useless tower here. So, you know, there are some priorities when it comes to developers. Adding a new tower or fixing a tower to actually have some use in the game. Yeah, the paintballer, RIP. One final thing to know is that I don't actually see any weapons for this new tower. On the PvP matchmaking icon, if that's the assassin tower, I don't see a knife or a sword or any blade whatsoever. It is speculated to be a melee specialist, as seen here, but melee specialist, does that imply that there is like a secondary attack that it has if it's a specialist in melee? Like I said, it does lead some credence to the knife throwing ability that the Shredder Tower used to have, and that's why it may be mentioned as a classic threat, but who knows, it is speculation after all.